Welcome back to She Coaches Coaches. I'm Candy Motzek, and this is episode 2 of our special series, Build Your Business Like a Coach. In the last episode, I shared why I believe most coaches don't have a coaching problem. They have a consistent client creation problem. Today, I want to talk about something almost every single coach has experienced. The feeling that comes when the kind of marketing that you think you need to do just doesn't fit who you are. So let me ask you something. Have you ever opened Instagram, started writing a post, and thought, I hate this? Or maybe you've gone to a networking event. You've stood there balancing a coffee and a napkin in one hand and a plate in another, and you're trying to remember who you've already talked to, and you're quietly wondering, is this it? Is this really how I'm supposed to build my coaching business? Maybe you've heard someone say, you just need to put yourself out there. So you try, you post, you comment, you introduce yourself, you tell people you're a coach, and somehow, instead of feeling excited, you just feel uncomfortable, almost like you're pretending to be somebody else. Now, if that has ever happened to you, I want you to hear me. I don't think you're bad at marketing. I think that you've been handed a marketing system that doesn't fit who you are. Most of the coaches that I work with are thoughtful people. They've spent years building careers. They're engineers, they're doctors, they're accountants, they're corporate leaders, they're project managers. They've built their career by listening well, by building trust and solving meaningful problems. They're not looking for shortcuts. They're not trying to become an internet celebrity. And they're certainly not wanting to be a social media influencer. They simply want a steady stream of wonderful clients, clients that they can genuinely help, clients who value coaching, clients who want to do the work. And I don't think that's asking for too much. And yet, the advice they're given often sounds like this: post every day, create urgency, stay visible, be everywhere. Don't let people forget about you. Keep showing up. Wow, I actually feel a little breathless and exhausted just thinking about it. So, some of this advice does work. Of course, we need to take action. We need to do things to move our business forward. I'm not saying that the advice is not good, but I want you to notice something. Almost everything that I said to you asks you to broadcast. And that's a really important word, broadcast. Very little of it asks you to listen. And that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because coaching begins with curiosity and with listening, not broadcasting. Think about your very best coaching session, not the one where you had the perfect tool, the one where the client left saying, wow, I never thought about it like that before. What was it that made that session so powerful? Was it because you talked the whole time? Certainly not. In fact, you probably said very little. Was it because you convinced them? No. Was it because you had the perfect script? Of course not. It was because you were completely present. You asked thoughtful questions. You listened carefully. And you noticed something that they couldn't see. And then you reflected it back to them. They discovered something new. That's coaching. So here's the question I couldn't stop asking myself. Why would we build our business any differently? For years, I thought I needed to be better at marketing. And it's true. I needed to build my marketing skills, as do we all. I bought the courses, I read books, I tried all kinds of strategies. I experimented with social media. I worked on my messaging. And honestly, lots of those things did help. But underneath it all, something still felt uncomfortable. I kept thinking, why does building a coaching business ask me to stop acting like a coach? And eventually I realized it doesn't. The problem wasn't me. The problem was the model. I had borrowed a client creation system that was designed for marketers, not coaches. And that realization was really eye-opening because it meant I could stop trying to become someone else and I could start using my business, using the skills that I already had: curiosity, listening, relationships, trust. Those aren't just coaching skills. They are business building skills. They're just rarely taught that way. One of the coaches that I worked with is an anesthesiologist, and she coaches female physicians. She's highly accomplished, very intelligent, and deeply committed to helping women thrive in demanding careers. But she told me something that I hear quite often. She said, I don't want to sound salesy because she lacked confidence as a coach, but she simply didn't want people to feel like she was trying to pressure them or twist their arm. She wanted them to feel understood. She wanted to help them. She wanted to work with them. That distinction matters, the pressure versus support. Because when your values don't match that marketing model that you're using, marketing is going to feel heavy. Marketing is going to feel heavy. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel like you're wearing that too tight jacket that just doesn't fit. I shared with her that there was a different way, and she was all in. She decided to go with it. She decided to do something different. So instead of creating more marketing, she started more conversations. And that is where everything began to change. She knew who she wanted to help, but when it came to talking about her coaching, something always held her back because she was worried about sounding salesy. She was worried that people would think she's going to try and pressure them to convince them. And truthfully, she also felt that she, a respected physician, becoming a coach, that people might think that was a little flaky. Maybe you felt that way too. You know that coaching changes lives. You've seen it happen. You've watched clients have breakthroughs. But when it's time to talk about your business, you pull back, you hesitate. Not because you don't believe in coaching, but because you don't want people to feel like they're being pressured. I think that's one of the most misunderstood things about thoughtful coaches. People often interpret that hesitation as a lack of confidence. I don't. I think it's a sign of integrity. You care. You want your marketing to feel as authentic as your coaching. And that's a good thing. The challenge is that most marketing advice doesn't honor that value. It asks you to broadcast, to influence, and to understand later. But coaching does the opposite. It understands first. That's why I believe coaches need a different, consistent client creation system. So instead of creating another lead magnet, she invited female physicians to take her survey. She wanted to understand, what was life really like for them? What was draining them? What did they wish that people understood? What did they try? Where were they stuck? As they responded, patterns began to appear. Certain phrases showed up over and over, and frustrations kept repeating themselves. Kinds of experiences connected these women. Those conversations eventually became a white paper, then a masterclass, then a lead magnet. They reshaped her website and her presence on social media. It changed her messaging and her confidence. But here's the part that I want you to hear. This is what she told me. I no longer feel like a used car salesman. I used to hold back because I was afraid of coming across that way. Now I have data that I gathered myself to back everything up. So when someone comes to me and says, I just feel like I'm going through the motions, I can say, you're not alone, and I can prove it. That changes everything about how I show up and how I sell. I can't tell you how much I love that quote, especially those 5 words. And I can prove it. Think about how different that feels. She's no longer trying to convince anyone. She's sharing what she discovered. She asked, she listened. Now she's sharing what she's learned. She's saying, this isn't just my opinion. This is what the women that I spoke with told me. Can you feel that shift? That's not just sales. That's service. When I completed my own coaching business growth survey, something similar happened. People started to ask me different kinds of questions. So instead of saying, what kind of a coach are you? They would ask me, what are coaches telling you? Now that's a completely different conversation. I wasn't trying to prove that I knew what I was talking about. I was simply sharing what I had learned from coaches. And that's what I want for you too. I don't want you to become louder. I want you to become more centered in real conversations, centered in genuine understanding, and centered in insights that you have gathered for yourself. Because when you're centered, marketing stops feeling uncomfortable. It starts to feel aligned. It feels like teaching and sharing and helping and leading. One of the things I discovered in my coaching business growth survey was that coaches with more clients weren't necessarily creating more content. They were creating more conversations. They were speaking on stages. They were on podcasts. They were in relationship. They were networking in meaningful ways. They were building referral relationships. They were showing genuine interest in the people that they help. That reinforced something that I had been sensing for years. Clients don't come from content alone. They come from trust. They come from being heard. And that trust grows through conversations. Content supports trust, doesn't replace it. And this is a really important distinction. Now, does that mean you should stop posting on LinkedIn? No. Should you stop having a website? Of course not. Those things are valuable. They are business tools that are needed. But imagine how much easier your content could become when it grows out of real conversations. Imagine sitting down on Monday morning and thinking, I know exactly what I'm going to write. Not because you planned a random theoretical content calendar using ChatGPT, but because somebody said something to you last Thursday, or because five different people described the same challenge in almost exactly the same words. That's how content becomes meaningful. It's not manufactured, it's discovered. And here's another benefit that I didn't expect. The more conversations I had, the less worried I was about sounding authentic because I wasn't trying to craft a message anymore. I was reflecting what I had learned. And I think that listeners can really feel the difference, and prospective clients can certainly see the difference. You're no longer trying to sound like an expert. You're simply sharing what you've observed and learned. So here's something that I'd love you to think about this week. What is one conversation that you've been avoiding because you've been trying to solve the problem with more content? Maybe it's inviting somebody to a virtual coffee. Maybe it's reaching out to a past client. Maybe it's asking five thoughtful questions instead of writing a social media post. Because every meaningful conversation teaches you something. Every conversation strengthens your understanding. And every conversation brings you one step closer to becoming the coach that people trust because they know you genuinely understand them. Next week in this series, we're going to talk about something that I think every coach worries about. How do you stand out when there are thousands of other coaches? And the answer might surprise you because I don't think standing out has anything to do with being louder. Now, if today's episode has resonated with you, I would love to send you a copy of the Coaching Business Growth Survey. Inside, you'll see what 115 independent coaches shared with me about what's really going on in our profession today. What's working, what's changed, what's not working, and what the coaches with consistent clients are doing differently. You'll find the link in the episode notes. And until next time, keep asking those great questions because the best coaching businesses aren't built by shouting louder. They are built one thoughtful, meaningful conversation at a time.